It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 30, looking at the players of the 2025 Gold Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Jamaica. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 30 on the players of the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. This episode covers Jamaica's players. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts, Series 21 to 27 dealt with the 2026 World Cup qualifying. Series 21, for example, is covering the Asian region, and we actually did preview the preliminary round there. We were hoping to do more previewing for World Cup 2026 qualifying, but life got busy. However, we still have hopes of covering it, but we'll now have to do it mostly through reviews. So the past, present, and future media cast that we produced in the spring of 2024 is still useful. It outlines the World Cup 2026 qualifying procedure in each region, and we will add a link to that in the show notes. Okay, we'll come back to World Cup 2026 qualifying then, but we'll do that after our current focus, which is the 2025 Gold Cup here, and this episode on Jamaica's players. So we're doing this media cast on players in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors to categorize them into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, and seemingly off the squad. And we'll go into more details on the players we think likely to reach the final squad. And perhaps even just the names, much less detail on those players unlikely to get there. Part 2 of the players episode will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad is selected. That'll probably be in early June. At that time, we'll go back over the list we create here and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll cover other things like updating injuries, surprise selections. And in that part 2, our focus will be on predicting the starters. So this episode has 3 sections. Section 1, we're going to look at some general information on the team. In Section 2, we cover the main candidates in each position. And Section 3, where we summarize and conclude, especially focusing on injuries to keep an eye on. Okay, let's begin then and move into Section 1. I'm going to make the graphics on the screen for YouTube watchers a bit bigger here. And we'll begin with some comments on the squad and big names who have drifted off the squad during this period. So we have central defender Adrian Mariappa. He is 39 years old now, and he has 72 caps and 1 goal for Jamaica since 2012, and last appeared in September of 2023. We won't go into detail on their history. Usually they've been involved in a lot of tournaments because they're veterans. Next we have Kemar Lawrence. He's 33 years old with 77 caps and 3 goals for Jamaica since 2013. Both he and Mariappa are still playing club soccer, just drifted off the national team here. And Kemar Lawrence last appeared in the 2023 Gold Cup. Not so much a veteran, but I want to mention Corey Burke, the attacking midfielder. Just 35 caps and 9 goals for him. He's 34 years old and was with Jamaica since 2016, but has not appeared for Jamaica since March of 2024. Okay, those are the big names off the squad. There is a slight chance of them coming back, but generally we don't think so. Okay, let's look at the games that they've played over the period we're looking at. So our period begins with the 2023 Gold Cup, and Jamaica played 5 games there. That was in June of 2023. After that, in September and October 2023, they played the Nations League group stage for the 2023-24 Nations League. That's 4 games, September and October. At the beginning of November, they had a friendly, and that was mostly their A team, actually, a couple of B team members in the squad there. And that was, I guess, in preparation for the November 2023 Nations League finals. So they actually had 2 games there in November and then 2 games in March of 2024. Next, we have 2 friendlies in March of 2024 also. This was a recruitment friendly, we call it. Players whose names are unfamiliar that they're basically trying out for the squad. So 2 games there in March 2024. We won't talk about that much unless the players become relevant later on. In June, a busy month in June of 2024, it begins with their World Cup qualifying campaign for the 2026 World Cup. The first 2 games there, and the next 2 games won't be played until a year later. After that, there's the 2024 Copa America for Jamaica, also in June of 2024. And we should say that the manager resigned after that. We'll talk about that right at the beginning of section 2. But in between this and the next set of games, the manager resigned and a new manager came in. The next set of games was the 2024 Nations League group stage. So 4 games again in September and October. And then the quarterfinals there in November of 2024. 2 games for that one. In February of 2025, they played 2 friendlies. These were recruitment friendlies, but perhaps significant in that a couple of players came out of that. 3 players came out of that and were on the squad for the 2025 Gold Cup qualifying playoffs in March. So 2 games there against St. Vincent and Grenadine to qualify for this Gold Cup. And there we have it. So all in all, I'm just going to correct a couple of things on the graphics there. All in all, that makes up 29 games. And we are going to analyze the positions, not in great detail here. Oh, sorry, we're analyzing the formations. So we won't go through each game individually, but we'll summarize by saying that in the most common formation that they used was a 4-4-2. That was in 11 of their 29 games, or 38% of the games. I'll just mention 2 others. In 5 of the games for each of these 2 formations, that's 17% each. We have a 4-2-3-1 formation and a 3-2-2-2-1 formation. And then we have 4 other formations making up the rest. I'll put them on the graphic if you want to look at them, but we won't go through them. And then we'll do a bit of analysis on this. So what we see here is 27% of the time they use a 3-man backline or a 3-man central defense. So that means about roughly a third of the time a 3-man central defense. Otherwise, it's a 4-man. Up front, we have a 2-man front line about half of the time, 45% of the time. So roughly it's half and half between a single forward and 2 forwards together. And then in the midfield, the pattern we can identify is that it's a 2-man midfield 83% of the time. Whether that's a one-line or two-line midfield, we'll talk about that when we get to the midfield. But it doesn't matter much because generally they're the same players anyway. Okay, our last order of business here is upcoming games. So I mentioned as we looked at recent games, they played the first two World Cup qualifiers for the 2026 World Cup in June of 2024, and that continues here in June of 2025. I think I have the dates wrong here because these will be before the Cup, probably on the 7th and the 10th, I guess. But we have British Virgin Islands, who they play away, and we have Guatemala, who they play at home. They meet Guatemala here in the group stage of the Cup as well, so that'll be an interesting warm-up. Usually they don't allow teams in the same group to play warm-up games together, but this isn't a warm-up game, and so that'll be a good game to gauge both teams by. All right, that's it for Section 1. We move on to Section 2 to look at the candidates, our main order of business here, and to decide how likely they are to make it. We're actually going to begin with manager, though, and let you know the manager situation. So we'll name names first. The current manager is Steve McLaren. He was manager of England, but his name is in grey here because he hasn't been through a tournament. He didn't take England through a tournament. We'll talk a bit more about his bio shortly, I should say. And Heimar Hallgrimsson is the outgoing manager, and we won't go into too much detail on him, but I will say he has moved on to become the manager of Ireland, Heimar Hallgrimsson. So that'll be his third international team that he is managing, in addition to Iceland. And that change, well, we'll go through the biography, or we'll go through the position. Let's talk a bit about Steve McLaren, though. Jamaica national team since 2024, and he's had various positions with Manchester United, not their head coach, but as a technical coach and assistant manager. He was manager of Queen's Park Ranger and Derby twice in England, and some will be familiar with him as manager of Newcastle in 2015 and 16. So a lot of experience managing clubs, including Wolfsburg in Germany and Twente in the Netherlands, but international manager not so experienced. Okay, let's summarize the position or talk about what's happened over the recent period. So Heimar Hallgrimsson was manager from 2022, and he had led them through the 2023 Gold Cup, where they reached the semi-finals and lost eventually to winners Mexico, and also led them to a third place finish in the 2023 CONCACAF Nations League in March of 2024. They ousted Canada there in the quarterfinals. My tears are flowing in memory of it. Hallgrimsson continued until the 2024 Copa America, but a poor performance there, they lost all three games and finished last in the group, caused him to resign as a result. But before their next set of games, Stephen McLaren was in charge, and he led them to the 2024-25 Nations League quarterfinals, but they lost in the USA. Lost to the USA in November 2024 there and didn't reach the finals. Instead, in March of 2025, they would have actually qualified for the Gold Cup had they won in the quarterfinals. Instead, they moved to a further qualification playoff for the 2025 Gold Cup and qualified fairly easily, playing two games against St. Vincent and the Grenadines in March of 2025. So Steve McLaren leading them through this tournament, and we would consider him a definite candidate. We don't think they're going to change before the tournament here. Okay, let's move on to goalkeepers. We're going to begin here too by naming names on their likelihood level, and then we'll look at some biographical information on the key players. So we have a definite candidate in Andre Blake. However, he does have an injury concern, which we'll discuss in section 3. We have another definite candidate, actually, in yikes, my graphics are failing me here. There we go. In Jamali Waite, also definite. And then a likely candidate in Shakan Davis. And those probably will be the 3 keepers, because the next level is possible but unlikely, and that is Kanaya Boyce Clark. So with players of this level and below, I'll just quickly deal with their what information that we're going to give. So basically, he was not selected for the last 9 matches. Kanaya Boyce Clark, so drifted off the team during this period. Then we have 2 players seemingly off the squad. Kemar Foster last appeared for the team in March of 2024, and Amal Knight last appearing in November of 2023. Let's go back and look at the more likely candidates here. So Andre Blake is 35 years old now. He has 83 caps for Jamaica since 2014 and is captain of the team. And he's been with the same club in the USA, Philadelphia Union, since 2014. He's been part of tournaments since the Gold Cup in 2015. In fact, he hasn't missed a tournament, and has been captain of the team since the 2019 Gold Cup. Over the recent period, Andre Blake started 10 of their 18 games from the start of 2024. That's what we're looking at from player participation. From the start of 2024. And Andre Blake was out with 2 separate injuries for 6 games, although he did recover from those injuries, but recently has picked up a new one. 2 games he wasn't selected for, so still fairly firmly entrenched as the starting keeper, although this recent injury, might be a concern. We'll talk about it in section 3. The other definite keeper is Jamali White, and he is 27 years old, just 15 caps for the national team since 2022. I shouldn't say just, that's not just, that's 15 caps. Okay, Jamali White plays for El Paso Locomotive in the USA since 2024 and has played for smaller US teams for most of his career. He actually was with the Philadelphia Union Youth Club when Andre Blake first started there. The Gold Cup in 2023 was Jamali Waite's first tournament. He appeared in Game 3 because that was a partial B team game there, but he was the starter in the 2024 Copa America there. And over the recent period, Jamali Waite has started 7 of their 18 games and on the bench for 10. So just 1 match that he was not selected for. So he is kind of moving into the starting position. But again, a lot of those starts were because Blake was injured. The likely candidate is Shakan Davis, and he is 25 years old with 1 cap for the national team since 2024. He plays in Jamaica for Mount Pleasant since 2022, and he was a backup keeper for the Copa America 2024 squad there. Didn't see any action in that game. Shakan Davis got his first appearance in March of 2023 and did start 1 of their 18 games from the start of 2024. He was on the bench for 15 others, so just 2 matches that he was not selected for. So definitely seems the third keeper here going into the Cup. All right, that is it for goalkeepers. We will actually summarize the position in part 2 and kind of spell out who has played there since the 2023 Gold Cup. But in this part 1, we're really just looking at the candidates and their likelihood. Okay, let's move on to defenders. And we begin with central defenders. I'll just talk about the position briefly, though. This is usually a 2-man position, Jamaica using two central defenders in 72% of their games, but they did use a three-man defense in 28% of games also. Okay, let's look at the candidates. We have a definite candidate in Ethan Pinnock. We have to have a definite candidate in Joel Latibaudiere. He's classified as a central defender, but actually played maybe more significantly in the midfield during this period. So we've moved him to the midfield for the discussion. Although I should say he does come back into central defense, especially when it's a three-man defense. But we'll talk about Joel Latibaudiere later on. So our next definite candidate is Richard King. Two definite candidates there. We have a likely candidate in Deschamps Bernard and also in Damien Lowe. And then we have Michael Hector, who is at the possible level. And Mason Holgate, actually, we have four possible candidates here. So the second, Mason Holgate, the third, Fitzroy Cummings, and the fourth, Kyle Ming. We will come back and look at these candidates here, but let's look at the less likely ones. John Bell is possible, but unlikely. He was selected for the 2024 Copa America, but has not been selected for the last 6 matches. He only started 1 game during this period. We also have the outgoing veteran that we talked about in section 1, Adrian Mariappa, last appearing in September 2023. We have Javane Brown. He's coded as a central defender, but we're moving him to right defense, so we'll come back to him later. And finally, we have Jamoy Topi. Jamoy Topi last appeared for the national team in November 2023. So if these players, I've got everything in the wrong place here. If these players come back and are selected for the final squad, we'll give more detail on them. But let's look at the more likely players in a bit more detail. So a lot of candidates here, but keep in mind we are filling about 2.5 positions with these players. So let's begin with definite candidate Ethan Pinnock. He is 32 years old with 19 caps for the national team. He was a bit of a late joiner to Jamaica since 2021, and he plays for Brentford in England and has done so since 2019. So even when they were in the championship there, he was part of that squad. He was born in England and has played for English clubs throughout his career. He's actually famous for a long throw in, but I don't know why I'm saying that. So let's go to his Gold Cup history. The 2023 Gold Cup was his first tournament. He was actually on the preliminary squad for the 2021 Gold Cup, but didn't make the final cut. But he has been part of the 2 tournaments since. And so no action actually in the 2023 Gold Cup, but was a starter in the 2024 Copa America. Over the recent period, from the start of 2024, he has started 9 of their 18 games and was out with 2 separate injuries for the first 5 games and not selected for 4 games. But that's not really the profile of a definite candidate, but we think he's with a Premier League club, and we think Ethan Pinnock is a definite candidate. Next, we have Richard King. Not really a starter here, but you'll see why we have him as a definite candidate. Richard King is 24 years old and has 25 caps for the national team since 2022. And he plays for Cavalier FC, one of the bigger clubs in Jamaica, since 2021. But he was loaned to IBV in Iceland in 2023, probably a connection through the manager there. He was surprisingly not selected for the 2023 Gold Cup, but was for the 2024 Copa America, where he was just briefly a substitute there. And over the past, since the beginning of 2024, Richard King has only started 6 of their 18 games, but he was subbed in for 5 and not selected for 7 others. So what am I thinking here? He should be at the maybe at the possible level or likely level at best. So I'm just going to recode him here and move him on down. Sorry about that. And actually, I'm going to put him below Bernard Deschamps and Damien Lowe there. Okay, so let's move on to the 2 likely candidates. The first is Deschamps Bernard. So he is 25 years old with 19 caps and 1 goal for Jamaica since 2023. Plays for Sheffield Wednesday in England since 2023, but was with Manchester United from 2019 to 23. He didn't play any games for them, though. Rather, he was loaned out to smaller clubs there. Deschamps Bernard was part of the 2023 Gold Cup and also the Copa America in 2024. He has started 7 of their 18 games from the start of 2024 and subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 3. He was injured, though, for the last 3 matches, and that injury is still hanging over him. We will talk about that in section 3. And Deschamps Bernard also not selected for 3 matches. So all in all, that boils down to a likely candidate for us here. And Deschamps Bernard, there we go. Damien Lowe is our next player to look at, a real veteran with the team. He's 32 years old. He has 73 caps and 3 goals since 2016, and he's currently playing for Al Oudud in Saudi Arabia. But like Andre Blake, he was playing for the Philadelphia Union there before that, and mostly American teams for Damien Lowe. He did play for IK Start in Norway for 3 years, 2017 to 20, but mostly American teams otherwise. Damien Lowe's first tournament was the Gold Cup in 2017, and he's been a part of all tournaments since. Recently, he has started 10 of their 18 games from the beginning of 2024 and subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 1, but not selected for 5 matches. And we should say that in this period, he has moved into the defensive midfield a little bit. Okay, we have covered Richard King. I miscoded him. I feel tremendous shame. Let's move on to the first of our 4 possible candidates. And the first one is Michael Hector. And he is 32 years old. With 45 caps and no goals since 2015. And he's currently with Dagenham and Redbridge in England since 2025. He actually had been unattached to a club for quite a while, from July 2024 to March 2025. Dagenham Redbridge probably a step down for him because he was with Charlton Athletic before that, and then Fulham and Chelsea prior to that, so it's kind of consistently moving down there. He was born in England, Michael Hector, but actually chose fairly early on to play for Jamaica, and he was part of the 2015 Copa America squad that, yes, I guess they played in 2015, and has played in all tournaments since then. Well, not all of them. The 2017 Gold Cup and the 2023 Gold Cup, he wasn't selected for those matches. Just didn't make the final cut there from the preliminary squad in 2023 for the Gold Cup, but did come back for the Copa America in 2024. Michael Hector has only started 4 of their 18 games from the start of 2024. He was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 2, but not selected for the last 8 matches. So almost at the unlikely level here. We probably moved him up to possible just because he's a fairly big name for them, but certainly kind of drifting out, Michael Hector. Okay, the next is Mason Holgate. He's 29 years old and joined Jamaica late in 2024, so just has 3 caps for them. He's been with Everton in England for 10 years now, since 2015, but he has been loaned out quite a bit by Everton to West Bromwich Albion twice and Sheffield United and Southampton. Mason Holgate was born in England and did play for England underage teams. Um, he got his first cap for Jamaica in October of 2024 and started 2 of their remaining 8 games. He was subbed in for 1, suspended for 1, and not selected for 4 matches. Those, like Michael Hector, were the last 4 matches. So both of those kind of absent towards the end, leaving us in a bit of doubt as to where they stand with the team. But Mason Holgate, a possible candidate. The third one is Fitzroy Cummings. He is 28 years old with 3 caps for Jamaica since 2023. Like Holgate, has not been part of any tournaments and actually was off the team for almost 2 years. He returned after a 23-month absence in February 2025 to start 2 of their remaining 4 games. However, unlike some other players, he did then move on to be selected for the March 2025 games. He was on the bench, though, and that's what confused me there. So one of about 4 or 5 players kind of transitioning from the experimental squad to the national team, the main squad. Okay, the 4th candidate is Kyle Ming. He is 26 years old with 5 caps for Jamaica since 2023. He, like Fitzroy Cummings, plays for Mount Pleasant in Jamaica. I think I forgot to mention it for Cummings. Both of them do. And no tournament experience. He also returned after an 11-month absence. After an absence, his was 11 months. For those games in February 2025. And he started both of those and was on the bench for 2 others. So they're actually drawing players from that recruitment. Seems like a successful recruitment pair of games in February 2024. But we'll have to see if he makes a bigger impact on the team. Okay, we have gone through the central defenders there. And again, in section 2, we'll kind of talk about who's been occupying the position over time, a kind of a narrative there. But here we move on to the candidates for left back position. Let's talk about the left and right back position here. So sometimes when it's a 3-man defense, the left and right backs can push forward to become wingers. We did actually have Jamaica using a 5-4-1 formation. So in that case, they didn't push forward to become wingers. But in the more common 3-2-2-2-1 formation, which they used 5 times, these players will push up to become wingers, or else they'll choose a more attacking player to play in that position. Okay, let's talk about the candidates here. And we have the definite, no definite candidate, but the likely candidate, Amari Bell. And when we have possible candidate, Greg Lee, and Christopher Ainsworth also at the possible level. Here we also have departing veteran Kemar Lawrence, actually just 33 years old, so still a chance of him coming back. And we talked about him in section 1, but we have him seemingly off the squad because he hasn't appeared since the 2023 Gold Cup. We have 2 others as well at the seemingly off the squad level. Lamont Rochester, he last appeared for the team in November of 2023, and Ricardo Thomas, last appearing in March of 2024. And that's as much as we'll say about those players unless they return. But let's introduce the main candidates here. Amari Bell is 31 years old with 22 caps and 1 goal for Jamaica since 2021. He plays for Luton in England since 2021 also. So bit of a latecomer to the squad. He was born in England, and all of his clubs have been in England. Apart from Birmingham, the clubs have generally been smaller than Luton or Birmingham. So he was a bit of a surprise to be in the Premier League. With Luton there. Amari Bell's first tournament was the 2021 Gold Cup. He's been part of all tournaments since then, so 3 tournaments under his belt, and he started only 3 of their 18 games from the start of 2024, but he was out with 3 separate injuries for 12 matches. He's currently fit though. He wasn't selected for the last match, so it's a bit of a confusing recent history for him. But because he was selected for 3 tournaments and played for a Premier League club, we think Amari Bell is a likely candidate. That's where we settled. Okay, the first possible candidate is Greg Lee. He is 31 years old and has 23 caps and 1 goal for Jamaica since 2020. And he plays for Oxford in England since 2023, and also kind of smaller clubs for him. Ipswich when they were in the Championship League or below, actually, and smaller clubs like Morecambe and Bradford. Lee was also born in England, so a bit of a latecomer to the team as well. But he was considered as far back as the Gold Cup in 2021, where he was on the preliminary squad and didn't make the final cut there or for the 2023 Gold Cup, but he did participate in the 2024 Copa America. He started much more games than Amari Bell. He started 10 of their 18 games from the start of 2024. He was on the bench for 1 and not selected for 6 others. However, he was not selected for the last 4 matches, and that bumped him down a notch for us there. So Greg Lee at the possible level because a bit lacking in recent participation. The other possible candidate, Christopher Ainsworth, is 20 years old and just joined the team there in February of 2025. He's got 2 caps and he plays for Cavalier FC in Jamaica. The first cap then in those experimental friendlies in 2025 and started one of their remaining 4 games. Well, that would have been one of those February games, subbed in for the other, and was on the bench for the 2 March 2025 games. So yet another player who transitioned, but only to the bench. Okay, and we've covered the players below as much as we will. So 3 candidates there for left back. And again, we'll cover the narrative in part 2 for this position. But let's move on to the right back and begin with definite candidate, Dexter Limbikisa, I'm sorry. He's a definite candidate. No candidates at the likely level, and just 1 at the possible level here. That is Tavon Gray. We have a few at the possible but unlikely level. The first is Wes Harding. And yeah, we'll deal with what we will present about them here. Basically, he was called in out of the blue for the Copa America 2024 squad and then disappeared again. So has not been selected for the last 10 matches there. The other one is Malia Cowell. Malia Cowell was just part of those experimental friendlies, and indeed just the first one, actually. He was on the bench and not even called up for the second one. So that recent call-up makes him a possible but unlikely candidate, but really he doesn't seem to have been successful. So maybe a notch below that. The player, we have 1 player seemingly off the squad. That is Javane Brown. He was actually selected for the 2023 Gold Cup squad, but has not been seen since November 2023 on the national squad. So again, we'll talk more about him if he is selected, but he doesn't seem like he will be at this point. Let's take a look then at the two viable candidates here. The first, Dexter Lembikisa, and he's with Wolverhampton, or at least on their rosters, Wolverhampton Wanderers in England since 2022, but he actually has been loaned out to Barnsley this year since 2025, and Iverton Sport last year actually has been loaned out to 4 clubs by Wolves, but he was with Wolves Youth Club for 6 years. Lembikisa was born in England then, and his first tournament for Jamaica was the 2023 Gold Cup. He actually lost his starting position in that cup, but regained it for the 2024 Copa America. There. Lembikisa has started 10 of their 18 games from the start of 2024 and was on the bench for 4 and not selected for 4. So yeah, kind of more of a profile of a likely player, but I think it's the lack of candidates here that maybe pushed him up to a definite candidate there. Okay, the possible candidate is Tavon Gray, and he is just 23 years old with 9 caps for Jamaica since 2023. Gray plays for New York City in USA since 2020. That's New York City FC, and actually that was his youth club as well. I don't have a note that he was born in America here, but his much of his career has been in the USA. Tavon Gray started 3 of their 18 games from the beginning of 2024, and he subbed in for 3, was on the bench for 2, and injured for 1, and not selected for 9 others, including the last 2 matches. So that boils down to a possible candidate for us here. And there we go, just 2 candidates. We will summarize the position a little bit, in part 2, but that is it for defenders, and so we move on to the midfield. We're kind of dividing the midfield into 2 parts here, but we actually do begin with versatile midfielders, and we have a candidate who we placed as a versatile midfield. That's our own designation, by the way. We placed him as a versatile midfielder maybe a couple of media casts back, but we still have him here. It's Devon Williams, but he now seems to be off the squad. So around 2019 Gold Cup, he was a starter, but actually hasn't been called up for the last 2 tournaments there. And last appeared, but he has been playing. Last appeared in November of 2023. So Devon Williams doesn't look like he'll be part of this squad. And we move then to defensive midfielders. And just a little bit on the position that we're talking about here. So Jamaica uses a 2-man midfield in 83% of games, as we said in section 1. In about half of those games, it's a single line midfield, as in their most favored 4-4-2 formation. But in the other half of games, it's a 2-line midfield. So if you imagine the defensive midfielders in a 4-2-3-1 formation, for example. And then in 3 games, or 10% of the time, it's a 3-man midfield with a 4-3-3 formation that has a left midfielder and a right midfielder. But generally, we're finding that regardless of those specifications, it's generally the same players or a mix of the players, not a lot of difference between defensive and central midfielders here. Okay, nevertheless, we have that designation, and we begin here with Joel Lati-Baudière as a definite candidate. As we saw, he is coded as a central defender and spent about 40% of the games in central defence there, but we have him as a defensive midfielder because it's more makes more sense with the narrative, I'll say. The next candidate is a likely candidate, Isaac Hayden. And then we have possible candidate Casey Palmer. And then two possible candidates emerging from those February friendlies, Jashon Anglin and Sule Makala. And seemingly off the squad, possible but unlikely, is Kevon Lambert. So I will just dispense with him now. He hasn't been selected for the last 6 matches and didn't start any games over this period. Just 5 appearances on the bench. A bit of a recent veteran, I would say. Like, he's been part of Gold Cup since the 2017 Gold Cup, with the exception of the 2021 Gold Cup. But even as recent as the Copa America in 2024, he was selected. So still on the books, as it were, but recent participation makes us think he's unlikely. Seemingly off the squad, we have Brandon Cover. Brandon Cover last appeared in June of 2023, and we have Ramon Howell last appearing in November of 2023. Okay, let's go back and look at the stronger candidates here. So we have Joel Lati-Baudière. As I've said, he's a central defender, coded as a central defender. He is 25 years old with 24 caps and no goals for Jamaica since 2023. And he plays for Coventry in England since 2023, and with Swansea in the English League before that. He was actually with Manchester City and their youth club from 2013 to 2020. I don't have a note of whether he played any games for Manchester City here. I don't think he did. Lati-Baudière was born in England and played for the England underage teams there. And his first tournament for Jamaica was the 2023 Gold Cup. He was pretty much a starter immediately in that tournament and in the 2024 Copa America. Recently, he has started 12 of their 18 games from the start of 2024, on the bench for 1, injured for 2, and not selected for 3 others. Often those for the 18 players will be the friendlies that they weren't involved with. So Joel Lati-Baudière, a definite candidate, and we move on to likely candidate Isaac Hayden. He is 30 years old with just 4 caps for Jamaica since 2024. So he was born in England and also played for underage England teams. Came late to Jamaica here. He plays for Newcastle in England since 2016, but has been loaned out quite a bit recently by Newcastle to most recently Portsmouth in 2025 and QPR, Queen's Park Rangers, in 2024. He was with Arsenal's team there. He didn't play any games for Arsenal. No, sorry, I don't have a note on that one either. I don't think so, though. But was with Arsenal's youth system as well. So Isaac Hayden, a likely candidate. He got his first cap in November of 2024. He started 3 of their remaining 6 games and subbed in for 1, and not selected for those 2 friendlies. So Isaac Hayden kind of inserting himself recently. At the possible level, the first candidate of 3 is Casey Palmer. He is 29 years old with 13 caps and no goals for Jamaica since 2021, and he plays for Hull in England since 2020-24, and he too was with Coventry for in his case 2022 to 24, so a teammate there of Lati-Baudière. Actually, no, just for a year. They would have been teammates. And he also was born in England, just like the Hayden and Lati-Baudière. And his first tournament was the 2024 Copa America. He was actually on the preliminary squad, Casey Palmer, for the 2021 Gold Cup, but didn't make the final cut there. And he must have been off the team after that, because I don't have any notes for him for the 2023 Gold Cup. But a starter in the 2024 Copa America, and recently has started 10 of their 18 games from the beginning of 2024 and on the bench for 2 games. However, he was not selected for 6 other games, including the last 4 matches, so basically not called up in March. So that moved him down a notch for us, but Casey Palmer, a possible candidate. Our next candidate is Jashawn Anglin, and I think I said when listing his name that he came out of those February games, February 2025 friendlies. He was involved in those, but he's been around for longer than that, actually, since 2020, and he's 24 years old and has 12 caps for Jamaica. And he plays for Mount Pleasant in Jamaica. He has played mostly in country, but did spend a year outside with Miami FC in the USA. Jashawn Anglin was actually selected for the preliminary squad for the 2021 Gold Cup. Didn't make the final cut there, and didn't make the preliminary squads for the 2023 Gold Cup or the 2024 Copa America. Actually, there was no preliminary squad for that one. He started 3 of their 18 games from the beginning of 2024, as well as subbing in for 3 and on the bench for 1, but he was not selected for 11 matches. However, he has been selected in recent games. The other one does come out of those. No, he doesn't either. Oh my goodness, what a mistake I made. Sule McCalla also has been around longer. He has 6 caps for the national team and even 1 goal since 2023. And he's he is 33 years old. He also plays for Mount Pleasant in Jamaica. He's been with them since 2018. And also has not been involved in the tournament. In fact, he returned after an 11-month absence in February 2025, and he not only started those 2 games, but started one of the March Gold Cup qualifiers, Sule McCalla, and was on the bench for the other. So we have him as a possible candidate. I should say, actually, that start he got in March 2025 was as a defensive midfielder. So we've moved him. He's coded as a central defender, Sule McCalla. So possible candidate there as well. And that is it. 5 kind of viable candidates there in defensive midfield. But as I said, there's not a lot of difference between defensive and central midfielders for Jamaica in this period. So we'll move on to look at the central midfielders on our list. Actually, none at the definite or likely level. So we go straight down to the possible level. And we have Caroy Anderson there, as well as Demario Phillips, both of those possible candidates. 2 possible but unlikely candidates. The first is John Russell. So again, we'll dispense with their information here. John Russell has not been selected for the last 6 matches and hasn't started any games over the recent period. He was part of the Gold Cup 2023 squad, but not selected for the 2024 Copa America. So John Russell, possible but unlikely. In the same category as Romario Guthrie, and he participated only in friendly, so he actually did start 1 match and sub in for 1, but over the period he wasn't selected for 15 matches, including the last 2. So he played in the February friendlies, but doesn't seem a strong consideration for the squad. And then one player seemingly off the squad is Delano McCoy-Splat, and he last appeared for the national team in June of 2023. Let's go back and look at our possible candidates here. We have Caroy Anderson, 21 years old, with 12 caps for Jamaica since 2023, and plays for Charlton Athletic in England since 2022. there. He was with the youth system for a long time as well. Caroy Anderson was born in England, and he was selected for the 2024 Copa America, subbing into 2 games there. And he only started 2 of their 18 games from the start of 2024, but he did sub in for 8 and was on the bench for 3. Caroy Anderson. He was not selected for just 5 matches, but that includes the last 4. So that creates a little bit of doubt for us there. We have Caroy Anderson as a possible candidate then. The other possible candidate, Demario Phillips, is 27 years old with 11 caps for Jamaica since 2022. And he has played all his club career in Jamaica, currently with Montego Bay United in Jamaica. Has never been pulled up for a tournament. He actually was on the preliminary squad for the 2023 Gold Cup, but didn't make the final cut. And he actually returned after a 15-month absence for those friendlies in February 2025. Didn't start any games there, but was subbed in for one on the bench for all 3 others. So, excuse me, he did make the transition from those friendlies to the squad to Mario Phillips, and so we have him as a possible candidate here. Okay, that's it for defensive and central midfielders. We'll summarize who's been in the positions in part 2, but we'll move on to left and right midfielders pretty briefly here, because the 4-3-3 formation is the only one to use these positions, and it was featured twice in the 2023 Nations League group stage, and then once in an experimental friendly shortly after. So they haven't used it much, and we noted basically that that the regular defensive and central midfielders filled the position. However, we will say that there was the strange inclusion of forward Dujon Richards, shortly after the Gold Cup. But even he played each side once. So we don't really have players who are playing as left or right midfielders. In fact, we only have one to put on the list because he's coded as a left midfielder, and that is Deshane Beckford, who is seemingly off the squad. He hasn't been selected for the last 16 matches. The last 13 matches. So he is off the squad. And that is it. Let's move on then to the attacking midfield. We're going to begin with a versatile attacking midfielder. In other words, a player who we're going to see kind of all over the upper end of the field. And that is Leon Bailey. So we kind of recoded him as a versatile attacking midfielder, and he is a definite candidate. He's the only one we're going to code this way, even though we do see quite a bit of switching around in the upper part of the field. But Leon Bailey particularly kind of slots in anywhere. So Leon Bailey is 28 years old with 34 caps and 6 goals for Jamaica since 2019. And he plays for Aston Villa in England since 2021 and was with Bayer Leverkusen in Germany for 4 years before that. He was born in Jamaica and actually played his first youth club in Jamaica. Then he moved over to Europe to play in other youth clubs. And Leon Bailey has been part of tournaments since the 2019 Gold Cup there. So the 3 Gold Cups following that. However, for the 2024 Copa America, he declined the call up because of disagreements with the Jamaican Football Federation. So he was basically off the team for most of 2024, from the beginning up until the fall. So Leon Bailey has only started 4 of their 18 games from the start of 2024. He was injured for 2 in that period, not selected for 12 others. But now he's back with the team. We consider him a definite candidate. Okay, that is the versatile midfielder, and we'll move on to left attackers. So a bit about the position. It's kind of a Soccer Files' own creation here. We've come to see this on the right attacking position as dependent on the formation. It's usually an attacking winger in a 4-4-2 formation, attacking midfielder in a 4-2-3-1 formation, or left forward in a 4-3-3 formation. It can be any of those positions, and basically Jamaica uses them all. Although in this period they have favoured the 4-4-2 formation, so it's more of an attacking winger. I say an attacking winger because there will be a left or a right back behind this player. Okay, let's look at the candidates. We have a definite candidate in Damari Gray. He does have an injury, or he does have a kind of a tag on his name, which is a bit of a concern, but we'll talk about it in section 3. Damari Gray is a definite candidate, though. We have Ronaldo Cephas as a likely candidate, and then we have Alex Marshall as a possible candidate. And we do have one candidate below that level at the seemingly off the squad team, and that's Devontae Campbell. And he has not appeared for the team for the last 13 games. So that's as much as we'll say about him unless he comes back into the squad for part 2. Let's look at the candidates here then. Damari Gray, the definite candidate, is 29 years old, and he joined the team late, as many of Jamaica's top players do. He was born in England and played for England underage teams, and that's where a lot of them come from. Kind of, they have a connection to Jamaica, and in the end, they kind of wait to see if they make the England team, and then in the end, join Jamaica if they don't. So Damari Gray is. I don't know if I gave his number, so I'll just say again, 22 caps and 7 goals for Jamaica since 2023. He plays for Ettifaq in Saudi Arabia now since 2023, but did play for Everton and Leicester in England as well as Birmingham. And his first tournament for Jamaica was the 2023 Gold Cup. Of course, a starter as soon as he came in, and also a starter in the 2024 Copa America. Actually, he was a sub in game 2 there, but is definitely a starter for Jamaica when he's available. Damari Gray started 11 of their 18 games from the start of 2024, and he subbed in for 1, was injured for 2, suspended for 1, and on special leave for 2. That might play into the concern about him. Just 1 match, though, that he wasn't called up for, and that was the first match. So Damari Gray, a definite candidate here. The likely candidate is Ronaldo Cephas or Ronaldo Cephas. I'll have to learn how that name is pronounced. He's 26 years old with 14 caps and 1 goal for Jamaica since 2022. And he plays for Ankara in Turkey since 2023 and was with Skopje in North Macedonia. Before that, actually, he had moved over from Jamaica to North Macedonia there in 2022. And so his previous clubs were all in Jamaica. He was selected for the 2023 Gold Cup preliminary squad, but didn't make the final cut, but did for the Copa America in 2024, where he subbed into 2 games, first 2 games, and actually started game 3 there. Cephas started 5 of their 18 games since the start of 2024, as well as subbing into 8. So he was injured for 2 and not selected for 3. So Ronaldo Cephas, a likely candidate here. And let's, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Okay, let's move on to the possible candidate, Alex Marshall. And he is 27 years old with 17 caps for Jamaica since 2017. So you can tell by those numbers he's never really kind of gotten a foothold into the squad. And he was on the preliminary squad as far back as 2017. But didn't make the final cut there and hasn't been selected for any of the 4 Gold Cups, including that, since then. But finally was selected for the 2024 Copa America, even though he appeared only briefly in 1 game as a substitute. Alex Marshall had returned actually after a 2-year absence just before the Copa America in March of 2024 and only started 1 of their remaining 18 games. But he subbed in for 2 and was on the bench for 3. He was injured for 4 matches and not selected for 8 matches, and that includes the last 4 matches. So once again, he seems to be on the outskirts here, and we could only put him as a possible candidate. Okay, that is the situation for left attackers. We'll summarize the position in part 2, but in terms of candidates, we'll move over to the right attacking side, and we'll begin with definite candidate Bobby D. Cordova-Reid. And then we have a likely candidate, Kahim Dixon. And a possible candidate, Norman Campbell. So just like the left side, 1 definite, 1 likely, 1 possible. We have actually Jamal Lowe is coded as a right attacker, but we've moved him to a forward because those were his only starts during this period. So we'll come back to him a little bit later. And then we have 1 player seemingly off the squad, Kahim Paris. Kahim Paris last appeared in the 2023 Gold Cup, which he was selected for, but has not been called up since. All right, let's go back and take a look. Bobby D. Cordova-Reid does have an injury tag on him, so we'll talk about that in part 3. He's 32 years old with 38 caps and 6 goals for Jamaica since 2019. And he was born in England, but joined the team a bit earlier than some of them do. He plays for Leicester in England since 2024 and was with Fulham in England from 2020 to 2024. But most importantly, from my parochial point of view, he played for Cardiff in the English League from 2018 to 20. So we love him for that. Because I was raised in Cardiff. Okay, and quite a long resume before that. He's played for quite a few teams, but we'll move on to talk about his Gold Cup history. First tournament there was the 2021 Gold Cup, where he came in, and he was also selected for the tournaments after that. Of course, he is a player that they will that will be a starter if he's available. Bobby D. Cordova-Reid has started 11 of their 18 games from the start of 2024. He was on the bench for 2 and injured for 2 and not selected for 3 others, probably the friendlies there. And he's a definite candidate. Next, we have Kahim Dixon at the likely level. He is just 21 years old, but has 13 caps and 2 goals for Jamaica since 2024. And he plays for Charlton Athletic in England since 2024. He moved over from Jamaica, where he was playing with clubs before that. So Kahim Dixon was selected for the 2024 Copa America and subbed into all 3 games there. He got his first cap actually shortly before that tournament in March 2024. He only started 1 of the remaining 17 games, but he subbed in for 11 and was on the bench for 3. So just 3 matches that Kahim Dixon was not selected for. So even though he doesn't seem like a starter, we do consider him a likely candidate to be named to the squad. Actually, starting a bit more than him is our possible candidate, Norman Campbell. Norman Campbell's 26 years old with 7 caps for the national team since 2020, and he plays for Randers in Denmark. Since 2024. He too, like a few others we've seen, was selected for the preliminary squad for the 2021 Gold Cup. Perhaps the reason for that is that it was a 60-man preliminary squad. So basically naming every Jamaican who ever touched a soccer ball to the preliminary squad there. But Norman Campbell didn't make the final cut and wasn't even really a consideration for the 2023 Gold Cup because he was off the team for 3 years when he returned in September 2024 to start 2 of their remaining 10 games, as well as subbing in for 2. However, Norman Campbell wasn't selected for the last 6 matches, so almost seems unlikely at this point. But we did leave him at the possible level, maybe because 2 of those matches were friendlies. There. Okay, that is the right attacking side of the field. And before we move on to forwards, we have to look at central attackers. But I'll talk about the position here because Jamaica hasn't used this position very much. In only 24% of their games over the period does the central attacking midfield position exist, and that formation is usually the 4-2-3-1. However, they do use it, and we have a few players to talk about here. The first one who's actually coded this way is Tyrek McGee, and he is at the likely level for making the squad. And then we have an interesting prospect in Omari Hutchinson, who we put at the possible level here. We'll talk about his story when we come back to them. But let's finish naming names. We have 2 candidates at the possible but unlikely level. The first is Dwayne Atkinson, and he returned after an almost 2-year absence for those friendlies in February 2025, but was actually just on the bench for one of them and not selected for the second one, nor the March 2025 game. So Dwayne Atkinson, quite unlikely. The other one is Daniel Johnson. We should actually put him ahead because he's a bit more likely. We won't go through his bio, but he was selected for the 2021 and 2023 Gold Cups, and he did start 1 game over the period, but he wasn't selected for the last 13 matches, Daniel Johnson, so seems to have drifted off the squad there. We also have, possible but unlikely player number 3 is Ravel Morrison. Ravel Morrison, an interesting story as well, but he hasn't been selected. He's really been in and out of the team quite a bit. He did actually play in the 2021 Gold Cup, but no other tournaments for Jamaica. He did return after a 20-month absence, including what seemed to be a ban from international play. There, he returned in November 2024, was on the bench for 1 game and then not selected after that. So just popped his head in there. Ravel Morrison, a talented player, but a bit of a difficult player as well. Okay, that is our possible but unlikely candidate. And we move on to a player seemingly off the squad, Corey Burke. So not quite a veteran with the team, but has been around for a long time since the 2017 Gold Cup, and actually called up for most tournaments up to the 2023 Gold Cup, but last appeared for the team in March 2024, just before the Copa America there, which he was not called up for. So Corey Burke seems to be off the team. We have a couple of other players too at this level. Trayvon Reed last appeared for the national team in November of 2023. And finally, Lamar Walker last appearing in March of 2023 there too. So all three of those players seemingly off the squad. So we really only have two candidates amongst all those to go into greater detail on. The first is likely candidate Tyreek Miller, and he is 26 years old with 16 caps for Jamaica since 2019. And he plays for Veer United, actually not one of the bigger clubs in Jamaica there since 2025, but did spend time in the USA and Belgium as well, and was selected for two Gold Cups in 2019 and 2021, but neither of the two tournaments since then. He had returned after an 11-month absence in October of 2024, Tyreek McGee, and started 4 of their remaining 8 games, as well as subbing in for 2 and being on the bench for 2 others. So Tyreek McGee, a likely candidate here, having been called up for the last 8 matches, including though the kind of experimental friendly match. So not kind of fully on the team just yet there. Okay, the possible candidate is Omari Hutchinson, who is playing in the Premier League this year. Omari Hutchinson is 22 years old and has 2 caps for Jamaica since 2023. But those were friendly, so they didn't commit him to Asia. So what am I talking about? Didn't commit him to Jamaica, and he still seems to be undecided between England and Jamaica. He was born in England there, and was actually put on the squad for the 2023 Gold Cup, on the preliminary squad there. He didn't make the final cut there, but it might easily as well be that he declined, having not made up his mind yet. Anyway, he's a candidate for Jamaica. He was with Chelsea in England for a while, and with their youth club, so he would be a good catch for Jamaica. But as it is, Omari Hutchinson last appeared for Jamaica on the bench in June of 2023. So who knows? But we have him as a possible candidate. Perhaps he will make his decision before this tournament. Okay, those are the only 2 viable candidates. And this position is a bit interesting to look at, because basically we have out of position players coming into it, even though McGee did play. But now I'm treading on the toes of part 2, so I'll stop summarizing the position and leave that for part 2, and continue with candidates here as we move on to the forward line. And we do have a category for secondary strikers, but that's not relevant for Jamaica. So we go right to the forwards, and we'll talk about the position first. We only look at formations here with a 1 or 2 man forward line. If it is 3 forwards, like in a 4-3-3 formation, we consider the outside forwards to be left and right attackers. So we would have covered them in a previous section. So Jamaica used a 2-man front line in 45% of the games in this period. So it was almost an even split between a 1 and a 2-man front line. So let's look at the candidates. We have Mikel Antonio as a definite candidate, although he does have an injury concern. We have Warner Brown as a likely candidate, and also Shamar Nicholson as a likely candidate. I would put him a bit higher. We'll talk about it when we get there. We have Romario Williams as a possible candidate, and then we will look at the lower candidates briefly here. We have four players at the possible but unlikely level. The first is Jamal Lowe. We mentioned him earlier because he's coded as a right winger, but we moved him to forward because he got 2 starts during the period, and they were as a forward. However, he was not selected for the last 8 matches there, so we have him possible but unlikely, and we'll save any details for if he's selected. The second one is Daniel Green. He returned after a more than 2.5 year absence and started one of the experimental friendlies in the period in February there of 2025. He was on the bench for the other, but then not one of the players kind of called forward to the March games there. So unlikely here. The third unlikely candidate, Chanel Thomas. Same situation, called in for those February friendlies, but not called for the March matches there. And finally, Corey Bennett. Got his first appearance on the bench in November 2024, but was just on the bench for one game and then not called up for the last 4 matches, even for those friendlies. So pretty close to no chance for him. We have a couple of candidates or several candidates at the seemingly off the squad level as well. So Malik Foster last appeared in November 2023. Dewan Richards, we did mention him earlier because he oddly was playing as a third midfielder in the 4-3-3 formation, which they used a couple of times. But he hasn't appeared since October 2023, so seemingly off the squad. Trevante Stewart last appeared in November 2023. Fabian Reed, not selected for the last 14 matches. And finally, Kemar Roof. I always think Kemar Roof will be more integrated into the squad than he actually is. He plays for Rangers in Scotland since 2020, but last appeared for the national team in November 2021 there. So he was actually named to the preliminary squad for the Nations League finals in March of 2024. So it's not completely off the squad since 2021. And his name does kind of seem to pop up for every tournament. He was also on the preliminary squad for the 2023 Gold Cup. Anyway, we have him as seemingly off the squad, and we'll only come back to him if he's selected. Okay, I'm just trying to organize my graphics. So let's take a look at the candidates here. The main candidate, Mikel Antonio, is 35 years old. He joined Jamaica in 2020 and has 21 caps and 5 goals for them. He's in his 10th year now with West Ham in England since 2015 and has played with English clubs through his whole career, including youth clubs. And he first joined for the 2023 Gold Cup then. So basically when he is available, he starts all games for Jamaica, and particularly in tournaments. So he was a starter in the Gold Cup 2023 and 2024 Copa America. But over the period, Mikel Antonio only started 7 of their 18 games from the start of 2024. He was on the bench for one, injured, which we'll talk about. He was injured for the last 4 matches, suspended for 1 match and not selected for 5. So Mikel Antonio, well, a definite candidate if he's able to play, but a fairly serious injury. But he might come back from it. I'll talk about it in section 3 shortly here. The likely candidate, or the first of 2, is Warner Brown, and he's 23 years old with just 3 caps and 1 goal since 2025, and he plays for Arnett Gardens in Jamaica since 2023, but he has played outside of Jamaica. He was with a team in Slovenia in 2023. And also was on loan to a US team in 2022. He got his first cap in February 2025, one of the more successful players to come out of that tournament. He started, he actually did start one of the March games there. So called up for the last 4 games and started 2 of them. So Warner Brown, a newcomer, but we consider him a likely candidate because of that start in their second March 2025 game. Next, we have Shamar Nicholson, kind of the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of experience. He has 52 caps and 19 goals for Jamaica since 2017, and he is 28 years old. Shamar Nicholson is currently with Tijuana in Mexico since 2025, having been with Spartak Moscow in Russia for 3 years before that. And he's also played in France, Belgium, and Slovenia. And Shamar Nicholson's first tournament was the 2017 Gold Cup, and he's been selected for all the tournaments since then, sometimes as a starter and sometimes as a sub. Has never really seized onto his starting position. That's the same thing during this period. He started 8 of their 18 games from the start of 2025, as well as subbing in for 3 and on the bench for 1. But there were 6 matches that he wasn't selected for. So Shamar Nicholson, not a definite, but a likely candidate. Finally, for biographical information, we have Romario Williams. So he is 31 years old with 24 caps and 4 goals since 2016. He has a long history of clubs, mostly in the USA. He's played also in Canada and in Kuwait and Egypt as well. Sorry, I had a sudden need to cough there. Romario Williams, currently with Indy 11 in USA since 2024, really has been considered for tournaments, but the only one he actually reached was the 2017 Gold Cup. Romario Williams. Over the recent period, he started 1 of their 18 games, subbed in for 4 and was on the bench for 1, but there were 12 matches that he was selected for, including the last 4. So that boils down to a possible level. In our opinion, Romario Williams, a possible candidate. All right, that is it. That brings us to the end of our look at the candidates, and we move on to section 3. Just let me get the graphics in order here, because in section 3 we are welcoming new listeners because we're releasing this as a short version of part 1 on Jamaican players. So I'll just speak to the new listeners briefly. In the full version, we introduce the candidates and their likelihood of making the squad. We gave some biographical information on the players more likely to make it. So if you want those details, you can go to the full version. We also give our reasons for putting the candidates at the level that we put them. So we describe basically their participation over the past year and a half to 2 years. Okay, however, in this part 1, we're not concerning ourselves with predicting starters, but there will be a part 2 coming out when the squad lists are published, and that at that time we'll consider or make predictions as to who the starters will be. So let's review the candidates. This will be a review for people who listen to parts or the first 2 sections. We begin with the manager. We have Heimer Hallgrimsson, the Icelandic manager, going out. He's actually manager of Ireland now. He went out after the 2024 Copa America, and in came England manager Steve McLaren, who will guide Jamaica through this tournament. For goalkeepers, we have 2 definite candidates in Andre Blake and Jamali Waite, and then a likely candidate in Shakan Davis. And those are the only 3 candidates, so probably all 3 of them will be chosen. We do have candidates at the possible but unlikely or seemingly off the squad level. And if you're looking at the YouTube, you can see the names, but we're not going to cover players at those levels in the review here unless we have something burning to say about them. Let's move on to defenders, and we look at central defenders. Jamaica sometimes uses a three-man defense, so there's quite a few candidates here. Beginning with the definite candidate, Ethan Pinnock, and then three likely candidates, Deshaun Bernard, Damian Lowe, and Richard King. We have four possible candidates, Michael Hector, Mason Holgate, Fitzroy Cummings, and Kyle Ming. And for the players below that likelihood level, we'll just mention veteran Adrian Mariappa, seemingly off the squad now. Let's go to left backs. We have no candidates at the definite level, but we have Amari Bell at the likely level, and then two possible candidates in Greg Lee and Christopher Ainsworth. Also there we have a departing veteran in Kemar Lawrence, seemingly off the squad. That is left backs. Let's go to right backs. We do have a definite candidate here, and it is Dexter Lembikisa. No candidates at the possible level, and Tavon Gray. Sorry, no candidates at the likely level. Tavon Gray is at the possible level, and again, a few candidates below that level who we won't mention. Okay, on upfield to the defensive kind of end of the midfield, and we will begin with defensive midfielders here. We have a definite candidate in Joel Latibaudiere. He's actually coded as a central defender and does play as a central defender, but in this period since the 2023 Gold Cup, he features more as a defensive midfielder and is a definite candidate. We have a likely candidate in Isaac Hayden, and then three possible candidates, Casey Palmer, Jashon Anglin, and Sule Makala, who is actually coded as a central defender, but also has most significantly been playing here. Okay, we also have central midfielders, but none at the definite or likely level. Two possible candidates, though, Caroy Anderson and Demario Phillips there. Left and right midfielders, they don't really use a 4-3-3 formation much, so we don't really have any candidates there. We move to the attacking midfielder and have one versatile attacker who kind of shows up everywhere on the front line, and that's Leon Bailey. So we kind of recoded him as a versatile attacking midfielder, even plays as a forward sometimes. In general, the Jamaican attackers do move around a bit, just he moves around a bit more than, or let's say he's a bit harder to pin down than the other ones. For left attackers, we have Damari Gray as a definite candidate, and as a likely candidate, Reynaldo Cephas, or Cephas. I'm still going to figure out how to pronounce that. And then we have a possible candidate in Alex Marshall. Right attackers, we have Bobby De Cordova-Reid as a definite candidate, Kahim Dixon as a likely candidate, and Norman Campbell as a possible candidate. Central attacking midfield, they don't use the position much, but we do have a player coded as an attacking midfielder, Tyreek McGee, and he is at the likely level. And we also have, intriguingly, Omari Hutchinson at the possible level. Okay, yes, let's move on to the forwards. And here we have Mikel Antonio at the definite level, and then Warner Brown and Shamar Nicholson, both at the likely level. And then we have a possible candidate in Romario Williams. We actually have 9 candidates below that, but we won't introduce them unless they are selected for the squad, in which case we'll introduce them in part 2. Let's move on to the next order of business, which is a review of injuries. So we begin with goalkeeper Andre Blake. He had been injured a couple of times during this period, but even after the March 25th 2025 games, he got yet another injury, and he is out with a knee injury since early May, and an unknown return date for Andre Blake. So we have to put him in the unknown category, and hopefully we'll be able to update that in part 2. We have Mikel Antonio out with a broken leg in early December, and he's been out of action since then. However, believe it or not, he's due back on June 1st, so maybe available for the tournament here. We're going to put that in the close call category there, because at least it'll take him a little while to get back to fitness levels. The next is Bobby De Cordova-Reid. So we're looking at big names here. All three of these candidates were at the definite level. Bobby De Cordova-Reid was out since early May with a muscle injury. Those can be tricky and unpredictable, but he is expected to return back on June 9th. So we're going to say expected back for Bobby De Cordova-Reid. And then finally, we have two more to talk about, but the final injury is Deschamps Bernard, and he is a likely candidate for us here, a central defender, and he has been out with a knee injury from mid-February to the present, and he's not expected back until June 30th, so that is well after the tournament begins. So we would have to say Deschamps Bernard is out of contention here. All right. The other one we want to mention is Demarai Gray. We don't think this really affects his international thing here. Just a weird little tag on the main source that I use, and I'll quote the tag specifically. It says special leave dash cross competition. So we don't really know what that means, or whether it involves club play or international play or both. Now, I have seen this sometimes used when a player kind of joins another team halfway through the season, and so isn't allowed to play, say, in Champions League games or something like that. But I'm not sure what it means at the international level. But honestly, we don't think that'll affect Demarai Gray. Hopefully, we'll learn a little bit more about it before we get to part 2. So that is the injury situation for Jamaica, and we'll move on to closing thoughts. So for all teams, we're asking, will the top teams be sending their best? And that's always a question with Jamaica. I got to say, the big names like Demarai Gray, Mikel Antonio, and Bobby De Cordova-Reid have been pretty good at showing up for the team, and have been very good at over the years of showing up for the tournament. But it has been several years in a row now that they've been asked to come to a tournament, and kind of wonder when players will start saying no, like some of the top team players are expected to for this cup. So we won't really know until we see the lineup in part 2. But the burning question always is, will these teams be sending their best players? Okay, let's preview part 2 then. So in part 2, our focus will be predicting the starters, but we'll go through the list that we've created today and tell you which ones made it. So basically, any of the definite or likely candidates who don't make it would be a surprise. Any of the possible but unlikely or seemingly off the squad players would be surprise inclusions. And there's always a couple of new players who come into the picture. We'll also be updating injuries there, and as I said, trying to predict the starters. So we hope both part 1 and part 2, which will come a bit later, will help prepare you to enjoy Jamaica in the Gold Cup. We would like to thank Future Bass for the wonderful music you hear in this podcast. The title is called Alone.